Assalamu alaikum. Quite often one hears people saying, both Muslims and non-Muslims, that such and such thing has been said or done in Islam, or such and such is Islamic history. Whereas the reality is that what they refer to is certain ideas, views, practices, or history of Muslims. But what Muslims do is incorrectly referred to as Islamic. This misunderstanding must go because quite often there is a difference, and quite often a huge difference between Islam and what Muslims do. What is Islam? Islam means to surrender, to submit to the will of the Creator. The message of Islam was brought by the first man, the first prophet who came to this world, Adam alayhi salam, and was continued to be understood, believed in, practiced, and preached by all the later prophets, including Ibrahim alayhi salam, his two sons, Ismail, Ishaq, Ishmael, Isaac alayhi salam, and all other prophets, including Moses, Musa alayhi salam, and Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. They all brought Islam, but because of the changing times and because of the fact that they were not completely preserved, there were some additions, there were some imperfections that entered the pristine message of God delivered by all these great prophets until such time that the Almighty decided that He will now send His last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, God's peace and mercy be upon him. And because he would be the last prophet, the message would be fully preserved so that there should remain no doubt in the minds of humans regarding what exactly is God's message. How do we feel comfortable that the message has been preserved? Well, the message has been preserved in the Quran, which is a preserved book of God, preserved from all additions, subtractions, inaccuracies, fully pristine, preserved text. And it was done through primarily the memory of humans. It was fully agreed upon by the first generation, the companions of the messenger, and was transmitted. That full, complete agreement was transmitted to the next generations without any gaps, interruptions. The same was the case with Sunnah, which were religious practices practiced by all companions and transmitted from the first generation to the next, and so on. So that's what Islam is. The best and the perfect example of what Islam is, we find it in the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We find it in the lives of all prophets. But in the case of the last prophet, it's emphasized more because his message and the way he practiced has been preserved. Well, in some cases perfectly, and in some cases less than perfectly. The Quran is one source that mentions some of the practices, brilliant, ideal practices of the Prophet, But we do have his practices mentioned in the literature called Hadith, which is less than perfect, even though there's a lot of effort put in, sincere effort of hundreds and thousands of people that enable this source of history to be more reliable, but not certainly not perfectly reliable. This example of Islam is also to be found in the companions of the Prophet, some of whom were trained by the Prophet himself directly. They have been mentioned in the Quran in more than one passages in a way that put together, they are all uh, giving us an understanding of Islam, which is the true understanding. Their example as a group, a nation, an ummah is a near perfect example. However, if there are reports about them wherein they performed, did things, followed religion uh, in accordance with their own understanding, uh, there could be differences. They were humans. They were trained by the best of the mentors, trainers. But then, obviously, because they were humans, there could have been differences, and differences there were amongst them. So that's about it. We find the example of Islam in the Quran, in the Sunnah, in the life of the Prophet, and in the lives of his companions to a certain degree, to a greater or lesser degree, depending upon who they were and what exactly is the topic regarding Islam we are talking about. Other than them, we are all Muslims in the sense that we accept Islam as God's religion, and we accept the Quran and the Sunnah as the perfect message of the Almighty. We accept Prophet Muhammad as our model, as somebody whose example is a perfect example. But most Muslims are born Muslims. Some of them are excellent examples of Islam. Others are both behaving in a way which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, and many others are a very poor example of what Islam stands for. And we cannot distinguish one from the other. The model of Islam is perfectly, fully preserved in the original sources of Quran and Sunnah. There is a third source, which is a great source called Hadith, and the rest of it is just Muslim history. And there is no reason. There's no reason why what Muslims say, what Muslims do, should be considered the same as Islam. Like all non-Muslims, Muslims too are going to be judged by the Almighty in accordance with their performance, in accordance with the environment that they were a part of. And moreover, there can be extremely good examples of non-Muslims who are doing what the ideals of Islam stand for, what God's expectations are. Why are non-Muslims also behaving in a way that is exceptionally brilliant and very close to ideal in some cases? Well, because non-Muslims share a good part of the origins of Islam, the inspiration of Islam that was given to them. So there is some degree of Islam, more or less, in the entire humanity. To give an example, all humans have been given a good nature, the nature which informs us about what is good and what is bad morally. So it's shared by all. All humans, before coming to this world, uh, had an understanding of God, even though the memory of the experience that we had with God has been erased for the sake of trial. That's what all humans have come to this world with. All humans have been bestowed with, gifted with intellect, which, when it is used properly, honestly, it gives brilliant results. Um, some people don't have intellect as good as is reliable, and therefore they're not accountable because they don't have the faculty which would make humans accountable. So the critical use of God-given intellect is what causes humans to come up with brilliant results, not just Muslims, many non-Muslims as well. And let's face it, in the modern times, it's the non-Muslims who are excelling, and it should be a reason of worry for Muslims. Then let's not forget that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last prophet. He was not the only prophet. He was the last of the many, many hundreds and thousands. One estimate or statement is that there were 124,000 prophets. So let's not be surprised that there is goodness in this world in the light of, because of the teachings of the prophets. It's all ours. It's all the heritage of Muslims. It's all Islam, although in some cases, in many cases, many of the ideals have been kind of compromised. And it's a collective endeavor of the entire humanity to look for the truth in its perfect form. So what I'm trying to say is that the expressions like Islamic history, Islamic banking, Islamic architecture, Islamic civilization, these are incorrect expressions. These are all Muslims who've done different things. It's Muslim history. Banking proposed by some Muslims. I'm not particularly favorably inclined towards it. Muslim architecture, etc. God's message belongs to the entire humanity. And let us not divide humanity on the lines of religion. Let us invite all humanity, all potential Muslims, to the original, pristine message of Islam. May the Almighty enable us to know what the truth is, and may He enable us to follow it